Hi everyone, this is Sanjana from Mockat, and today I'm continuing the series where we're bringing out our Mockat students and their cat and interview experience. And today we have Ashwin out here who's going to help us shatter this, fear that sometimes engineers have that, hey, as an engineer or particularly as a male engineer, it's going to be tough for me because, we're not getting academic diversity points and gender diversity points and things like that. But what you might not know is that, not just in CAT, there are also some courses where being an engineer is an advantage, right? So Ashwin's going to tell us all about the IIM Bangalore BA program, which he's gotten through. But along with that, there's been a lot of other IIMs and other top 10 B schools that he's gotten through. So let's understand from him how he ended up studying and how he ended up cracking the CAT. So hi, Ashwin, welcome. And yeah, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I've already sort of told them that you have the common CAT aspirant profile, but just tell us in your own words a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone. Hi ma'am. So as ma'am told, my name is Ashwin. I was born and brought up in Madurai, where I did my schooling in Mahatma School. I was pretty consistent with my academics, and I got through to one of the reputable colleges in India. Uh, I did my undergraduation at Amrita School of Engineering, Coimbatore. During my time at Amrita, I actively took part in a lot of on-campus events and festivals, and I also organized a couple of events in the annual tech and cultural events.
Mm-hmm.
And apart from that, I also took part in the Smart India Hackathon 2019, where had my first experience of how technology is being implemented in real life scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
So, in order to work, not to gain some experience, I worked as a full-time software developer at IQI Technologies Bangalore,
Mm-hmm.
where I got the experience to interacting with the higher level management and how technology is actually being deployed into any use case that is there. So that is where I got my introduction to all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I went on to, preparing for CAT. And right now I am about to start my journey at IIM Bangalore.
Mm-hmm. And what made you decide to take up CAT and pursue your MBA? Because I mean, like you said, your scores, I mean, your scores, you are calling it pretty good. I would say it's really good. It's above 90% consistently. So what made you decide to switch and move towards an MBA?
MBA was not my naturally first choice. My first choice was to do an MS at the United States of America, and I was planning to do my master's in data science. But there were some external factors and internal factors that led me to make a decision of pursuing my higher studies in India.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like over the time of my experience, I learned that I was more inclined towards a managerial role, the more decision-making role, which was more in line with my point of interest, and that started my interest towards the MBA degree.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sure that I wanted to pursue my MBA in one of the top B schools in India.
Mm-hmm.
So that is when I joined Mockat to do my prep because I've heard fantastic reviews from my peers, and I just joined Mockat, and from there on, it was a smooth.
Mhm. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and I think that makes sense, right? Wanting to target the top five or the top 10 B schools. I mean, given that you had already gotten selected in a pretty great place to do your MS in the US, it definitely, targeting that top 10 is something that's good. But you had less time. I mean, this was your first time taking CAT and you actively started your prep sometime around June, July, if I remember. So, how did you consistently prep for those 6 months? And you were someone who was already at a good place, but of course, we had to get you to a really good percentile, do well in all the three sections, so that you end up getting the top IIM and other top B school calls. So, how did you what was your mindset for those 6 months, and how did you consistently prep to get there?
Sure. So throughout my journey, I had a constant backup from my peers, like who have already cracked CAT and who's already gotten through to an top B school.
Mm-hmm.
So from the experience that they gave me, I was sure, like I was pretty fixated that I have to be consistent with my preparations.
Mm-hmm.
So every day I would definitely attend the classes because the live classes gave me a lot of perspectives on how the CAT exam is going to be and how the question, like how we should tackle the questions. So
Right.
those sort of things I was getting prepared just by attending the classes. So
Okay.
I wanted to get through the top B school, so I have to be consistent. So apart from that, I also did the everyday POV Sanjana ma'am Sanjana ma'am always tells the habit, right? Like whenever we develop a habit, it gets easier
Hmm.
towards the end,
Yeah.
and that is something that I believed in, and I did pretty much every day. I did my POVs, and
Mm-hmm.
then the speed concepts are something that I would
On the quant front.
Yeah. It was like very helpful because the concepts are one thing, but learning to apply the concepts in the CAT questions are something that everyone needs to know. Like
Mhm.
myself coming from, after 2 to 3 years after the college, I was pretty rusty with my test taking and other things.
Right.
So I have to get my motor running in order to, gain some traction and get going with the preparation. So speed concepts, like these are not big modules. These are small modules which can be
Mhm.
taken at any point of time and
Mhm.
how much ever time you want. And this helped me, the speed concepts was something that helped me a lot.
Okay, that's great. In fact, one of the questions we ask is which feature helped you a lot. I think we already have our answer. But yeah, I must definitely commend you because I think I don't remember a class which you missed, or I mean, we have 25 mocks. So I think all the test taking strategy sessions, all of that, is something which you've done. And POV again is something which you've done consistently. So yeah, so that's a great, motivation to have. Like when you have peers or friends who've cracked CAT, who've got into IIMs, and you have them to motivate you. And hopefully you'll also end up motivating pretty much everybody that's watching this video. So tell me a little about like what was the section which you found the toughest, and how do you prepare for that? Whichever of these three.
Mm, like DLR was something that was new to me.
Right.
But it was a little bit like I was a little bit on the natural side. Like I was able to figure out the patterns in the questions.
Mm-hmm.
But during the exam, like I had my difficulties in attacking the VARC section
Okay.
because VARC was something like that's a lot of strategy to be practiced before
Mm-hmm.
going to the exam. Like which questions to pick, like the
Right.
RC questions and the
Right.
non-RC questions. So
Right.
that is something that was my constant. Like I was not 100% sure on whether or not I will do better, like to give my best in the exam. So
Mm-hmm.
VARC was my toughest section,
Mm-hmm.
and Quant was something that can be cracked with a little bit of preparation. In the start, it was a little tough, but over the time, it was made easy by a lot of preparation. That's all.
Right. Okay. Okay. So DILR was new, but when you started solving the cases and all, you found that
Yes.
it's doable. VARC was probably where, I mean, even though we've had English, of course, it makes a lot of sense because CAT RCs are, I would say, one overseas sources, lot of different genres, and very different from probably what we've had in school with like, more direct questions. Whereas here we'll have a lot of inferential questions, multiple different non-RC. In fact, we had all four this year, and sort of like then trying to choose which are the easy ones, because yeah, you're absolutely right. When 99 percentile is just about 40-50% marks, we have to pick and choose the easier or the faster questions, right? So that's definitely something which is there. And how did all of this practice culminate for you in the actual CAT exam? Because this was of course the first time that you were taking it, and you, I think, were putting pressure on yourself because you're very clear that yeah, I need to hit that high percentile, and I want to get into a top 5 or a top 10. So how did that go for you?
Pretty much what I told already. Like VARC, it was the understanding of the passage that can help you get through the section with a great percentile. So I
Mm-hmm.
was pretty consistent with my preparation with VARC, and I was getting through a lot of articles every day. Like my inspiration with the articles was like every article gave me a new perspective of the world. Like it was very interesting. Like whatever articles that were given to us, everything was very interesting, and that kept me pushing. Like I wanted to read an article every day, so
Hmm.
that is something I wanted to do every day. And then the DILR section, like that requires a lot of practice. So
Hmm.
at least 100 sets before the exam, that puts you on the top percentile group. And quant, as I said, like concepts, and then the speed concepts, and finally during the test we'll have to apply a certain strategy in order to uh, you know try to maximize the score that you personally can get.
You want to explain the quant strategy?
Yes. So there's a strategy called 688. So the first, like there's a total of 22 questions in Quant. So the first six questions we can take about 10 minutes. So in the first 10 minutes, uh, the first 2 to 3 minutes are dedicated just to browse through the questions. So we shouldn't solve anything like in the paper, but we have to form a predefined step, like what are the questions that I can pick, and
Hmm.
in those questions, what are the steps that I need to follow in order to get an answer.
Hmm.
So it's not that the 2 to 3 minutes is going to be wasted, but the 2 to 3 minutes is being invested in order to understand the question that we are strong in and the steps that basically you're forming the solution before even answering it. So that is like the first 10 minutes, you're using 2 to 3 minutes to just to browse through the questions. And the next 15 minutes, you can use 3 to 4 minutes to browse through the questions and then pick and choose. You can divide the questions like immediately you can do, and the next set of questions and the questions that you would never do. So you can categorize the questions in such a manner. And the last 15 minutes, similarly, you can take 3 to 4 minutes, but you have to be disciplined to give yourself the time, because that time is more valuable than you think, because it can help you form predefined notion of the questions, and when you're tackling it, it will be much more easier. Like
Because
quant
you've
questions
already thought of how to solve it.
yeah, quant questions basically take about 1 to 2 minutes if you're well prepared. So if you know the right set of questions to pick and the steps that you've already thought of before, so when you're actually solving it, it will be much more easier than you think. So that is the strategy I kept following for the last 15 mocks, and that helped me get through the CAT with a pretty good percentile in the final CAT.
And for everyone watching, what we'll do is we'll also link the video to Vignesh's 688 strategy, right? So you can, probably adopt that for CAT 2024. So yeah, so great, Ashwin. I think the hard work and then, obviously the test strategy and all of that pretty much paid off for you. There were quite a few calls that you had in the top 10. You had a lot of IIM calls, others like, SPGen and all. So how did you prepare for the interview, and what do you feel are maybe, some things or some qualities that any MBA aspirant should sort of have for the interview process?
So interview was something that I was very scared about after the CAT exam. So uh, the fact that we have to get through a whole different process before getting through to the B school that you want, that was pretty scary for me. But in the beginning, I was very nervous, because it's been a long time since I gave an interview, and so I was pretty nervous. And one thing I focused on myself was to get the basic HR questions right. So before even practicing the current affairs, before even practicing my other things that can possibly be asked, I focused on what can be directly inferred, like what can be directly asked from my profile. So that is something that I worked on. So initially, the tell me about yourself was something that was took me some time to get through it, because I had a lot of feedback from the ex alum the alumni of IIMs, and even our faculty, even Sanjana ma'am, Vignesh sir. Everyone helped me get through it, because initially I didn't have a proper structure, and I was not able to finish it within the time. So I recorded myself a lot of times. I wrote it, and then it took me some time to get accustomed to the tell me about yourself question. And I was at a point where I can just, at any point of day, if you ask me to tell me about myself, I can tell that. So that was something that I was entirely focused on. But all of this did not happen before my first interview. My first interview, I was prepared for this, but I was not very prepared and was very low on confidence. This was my IIM Lucknow interview. So
That's
I
an
was,
important one.
yeah, it was a very important, like at that point of time, it was one of my most important calls. So I was very desperate to convert IIM Lucknow, but I was very nervous for the first, because it was my first interview, and the whole interview situation, like I was very early to the venue, and I was the last to get out of the room. So
yeah, that's
it
tough.
was a very tiring process. The whole anxiety got me before the interview. So on the point of interview, I was pretty nervous, but I was also prepared. So I was prepared with the content. I was also shortlisted for the sustainability management and the flagship PGP course. Because my preparation was focused a lot more on the sustainability management, and my interview also revolved around that. So I was pretty lucky in that front. And then, but my tell me about yourself was a little rusty. I wouldn't say it was bad, but it was not up to the mark. So I was pretty scared after the interview. So that interview, helped me get over my, the interview fright. And then from the next interview onwards, I was very confident. I don't know what happened, but after the first interview, I was like, what else is that to face? Like I was in that kind of zone, and then from there on, I was pretty confident with all of my interviews. And the second interview was something that made a lot of difference with my the rest of my interview process. So the second interview was the SPGen interview. So with the SPGen interview, it is a group interview. Like most of you wouldn't know that, but it's a bunch of group interviews. First, you have a technical interview, and the second, it's a HR interview. So in the first interview, like you have, like it depends on the panel. So in my panel, it was all a similar background. So I was in information management, like I chose for an information management, and the rest of the students also wanted to pursue an information management. So I was the fourth in that group. Interview was going each one at a time, and I could realize something in that interview. So everyone had worked in very niche platforms, and whatever they had was very interesting even to me. At that point of time, even I was interested in what they worked on. But
You
my
think
line
that they have a better chance than you
yeah,
because
yeah,
their work ex was differentiated?
correct. Even the interview was very excited about on hearing what they had to say.
Okay.
But they were all not very confident. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say very confident because they were pretty scared, uh, like how I was in my first interview. Maybe it was their first interview. So, like I could see the difference, like what the content that they had to say and the way they said it.
Right.
So I pretty much made my mind because I was fourth in the group. So I was pretty much, made up my mind that that should be one significant factor that should differentiate myself from them. So at that moment, I decided the content is all the same. Like whatever I prepared for my IIMBA and tell me about yourself, it was pretty much the same. It was just a different person delivering it. So I want to tell everything that I prepared with a lot of confidence. So that differentiating factor helped me get through my first group interview. And in the second group interview, it was a pretty like it was a HR round kind of. So you have like they'll give you with hypothetical scenarios, and you'll have to come up with a more ethical solution. So
Right.
that is something that you have to be prepared on. Like you can't be prepared on that, but whatever answer that you tell out, it has to be ethical. That is
Right.
something you have to be very fixated on.
Mm-hmm.
And from there on, that interview changed my rest of the interviews because that confidence that helped me carry. I mean, after that interview, I was able to carry that confidence to the rest of my interviews, and I pretty much converted my rest of the calls.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, Ashwin is being a little modest here, but I think in terms of the interview, also there's a lot of effort which you have put in, right? So it wasn't just that, okay, I did an interview and then I got more confident. I think
Right.
we also like subjected you to multiple rounds with me, Vignesh, the IIM alums and all of that. And I think in terms of preparation, also there was a lot which you've done. So I remember one or two questions where one of the ones were like, you said you like playing games, and then they asked you about Nintendo's revenue, and
Yes.
you had that at the tip of your tongue and you answered, and multiple differentiated questions
Maybe
also.
I would like to add on to that. So this was my IIM Kohli coach interview. So like after the typical tell me about yourself, they maybe they didn't get attract like they didn't want to ask something from my profile. So they asked me about my hobbies. So when I told them that I like to play games in Nintendo, and then from there on, the interview went in that direction. So they asked me what Nintendo versus PS5. What is the revenue? Like how big is Nintendo compared to PS5? And the CEO of Nintendo. And the interview pretty much revolved in that direction. So, but I didn't prepare that for the interview. But as I was interested for I was a avid Nintendo fan, and I had this in my tip of my tongue. Like I already came to know it
You
from the
already
YouTube.
knew it. It wasn't for
I
the
already knew
interview
it.
that you prepared.
So I was able to answer that in that moment. So whatever you tell yourself that you have to be honest with what you say. So that will pretty much help you get through the interviews. Like if they throw a curveball at you, you can come out of it.
Right. I maybe even hit a home run. No, but then a couple of great points here. One is, so a lot of in-shoots. So Code is also sometimes known for having a little bit more of a grilling or a stress interview experience of sorts. But even like, in-shoots like IIM Calcutta and all, they deliberately ask you what are your hobbies and interests, and they will ask you questions. And I've sometimes had students who are like, okay, I like to play this sport. Why should I know all about it? Or, I like to read, but I don't know, like, the background of the author or whatever. But generally, the thought process is, hey, if we are interested in something, we would naturally want to know more about it. And when it comes to being a manager, again, these are things which come into play. And another great point is the tell me about yourself, right? Now, you might not be asked that in many questions, but wherever you are, it's a great question to practice so that you can drive the interview in a certain direction. And even, many of the other HR questions, I think we'll just link the the HR questions that we have, the YouTube playlist in the description, so you can go through some of those. Hopefully, once you've cracked CAT 2024, and a lot of these we can practice to sort of drive the interview in a certain direction. So rather than worrying that, hey, I'm not great at ACADS or I'm not great at current affairs, maybe, or whatever it is, try to drive the interview in a direction that you are confident, and hopefully then you end up in a position where Ashwin is, where he's cracked pretty much all of his interviews except maybe I think one or something like that, and of course the IIM Bangalore PGPBA. So on that note, tell us a little bit more about this PGP Business Analytics program. I mean, especially the first year, it's pretty similar to the regular PGP program. So what are the extra courses? What is the experience like?
Sure. So, IIM Bangalore's PGPBA program and the PGP program is like the first year is pretty much the same. So, everyone is pulled in the same classroom, and that is how the first year goes through. And everything changes, like not everything. A few mandatory electives are brought in the second year, from the second year onwards. So, a total of I think 7 to 8 mandatory electives are there, and those are the things that are pretty much in line with my line of interest, my line of interest. So I was uh, like more interested towards the course. So there are some courses like machine learning and artificial intelligence and deep learning, and there is one particular course, multivariate data analysis. So that is something that I think in the coming years it will be very useful, as everything is going in the direction of artificial intelligence. I think the data-driven decision making is going to be on the rise. So being prepared upfront, even in the B school, is going to be very. I feel it's going to be very productive, and it's going to make my career future-proof. So that is something I'm looking forward to. And yeah, like even the placements are very similar. Like IIM Bangalore's PGP program and the PGPBA program both have the common interviews.
Right.
And I think even the finance companies are also opening up to the PGPBA program. And if you want to get into consulting, I think there's like people from the companies that are hiring from finance.
Yeah, and not just finance, I think, so what you said, right? So the placements are joint, but yeah, some places like say consults and all, you might actually end up having an edge because the BA program consistently, they focus on the CAT percentile to hire. So that's something which is known. And of course, like you said, some of these, the analytics bit is something which again will help in a lot of places. But then Ashwin, you were someone who was coming from a electronics background. So while you were going to do an MS on the data sciences front, but it's not the core computer science background. So was that something which came up in your BA interview, or what are the other questions? How did you, really convince the Bangalore interviewers that this is something which you're really keen on?
Sure. So I was not, I mean, I didn't tell them about my interest in pursuing an MS degree in the US, but I did tell them that my interest was to become a product manager in the future. So my interview pretty much revolved around that. Like they asked me what is a product manager. So, and from there on, they gave me a hypothetical scenario, like a hypothetical business, and they asked me how and what a product manager can do to in order to help the product come to the market, and the aftermarket analysis. So how does a product manager come into picture in that cycle of a product release? So that is something that I was pretty aware of. Like I prepared on that, and I was able to answer them. And there were a few probability questions. So basically, like a probability density function, normal distribution, and they asked me to calculate the probability of a particular a probability density function, but I was not able to because, but I was upfront with it. So I told them that the integration part of it I am not aware of, but the rest of it I was prepared with. So I told them, I drew the diagram and everything, and that was pretty much my last question, and I was done for the day.
That's another great point, right? I mean, a lot of people end up being stressed for an interview, and especially if you are getting a question wrong, right? So sometimes you can be a little bit more stressed after that. And I think this is something which Vignesh keeps reiterating. One, the interview is not over till it's not over. If they're still asking you questions, that means you still have a chance. And nobody is getting all the questions right? There will be some questions which we miss, we fumble. And like you said, if we are honest about it, that is something which I think goes a long way, right? So that's
so one thing I would like to add is that one constant emphasis that Vignesh has is that we have to some way, in some way or other, connect with the interviewer. Like we shouldn't be very still, and we shouldn't be like we have to emote and we have to express ourselves in order to get the attention. And that is how the whatever words that we are telling will reach the interviewer's ears. So we have to tell it in such a way. We have to pause in the right places. We have to emote, and that is something that I feel can help take a normal interview into an very good one. So that is something I think made a difference in almost all of my interviews after SPJ.
Right, right. So yeah, and the experience, and I think you did that also. Like we always insist, right? So think of those your 8 stories or experiences that you are going to talk about, rather than just saying, "Hey, I'm like motivated, driven, analytical." Right? If you're bringing in those experiences, that is something that makes you relatable. They're going to remember you, and again, they're going to connect with you, like you said. So great, yeah. So all very interesting. But so far we've been talking about working hard and preparing and all. Now we come to the fun part of this session, right? So I'm going to just throw some questions at you, rapid fire. Answers can be as long or short as you want, but the only rule is you can't think. You have to just say out the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, ready? We start off.
Sure.
So what's your favorite of the 3 CAT sections?
DILR.
Okay. What was more stressful, the exam or the interview?
The exam.
Okay. And who have you interacted with more, Vignesh or Sanjana?
Both.
You can't say both.
Sanjana.
Okay. What is the one quality that you feel you need to crack the CAT exam?
Consistency.
Okay. Slightly different question. What is one quality that you feel every MBA aspirant should have?
Confidence.
Okay. Online or offline? I mean, you've obviously gone for online coaching, but how was that experience? Good, bad? Would you recommend it?
I would recommend online a lot because it was very flexible with my working hours because I was a working professional. It helped me with my preparation because after my work, I could log in anytime I want. I can join the class, like it wouldn't matter a lot. So I can join the class halfway and still continue with what is happening. And I can, if I want, I can watch the recording later on. So like the online experience was very good.
Okay. Okay. So on that note, what is the feature of Mockat that you've made the most use of, feature or aspect?
So that I think I've already answered. It's the speed concepts.
Okay. Again, so I think another of the rapid fire questions that you've already answered. What is the, what is it? What is the role that you want to take up after your MBA?
Product management.
Okay. One advice that you would give CAT 2024 aspirants?
Be consistent, be confident, and don't let the outside factors affect you. That's all.
Okay. Speed or accuracy? What do you think is more important?
Accuracy.
Okay. Okay. So I think that's about it. So thanks a lot, Ashwin, for coming in and explaining about the BA program and your entire prep process. So not just engineers, I think this is going to inspire a lot of people to take up CAT. So thanks for that. And of course, I mean, we'll stay in touch without saying, we'll wish you the very best. And I'm sure you'll end up with your work ethic, you'll end up doing well at IIM Bangalore.
All the best for CAT 2024.